That's been apparent already for 6 months. The launch of the counteroffensive sort of put it off. However, 3 months into the counteroffensive with no results, that fatigue is growing rapidly to the point where we've had reports that some Western leaders, US, European leaders, have floated the idea with Zelensky that he should call for a ceasefire. And a ceasefire would mean that Ukraine has to, status quo where the lines are now, which means that Ukraine would have to concede significant amounts of territory, something that Zelensky and the people of Ukraine are adamant they don't want to do. But if there's going to be a ceasefire, there's no other way of doing a deal with the Kremlin that causes the end to the fighting without giving up this land.
Right, Mr. Harris, I was just coming to that there are reports which suggest that Kyiv is under pressure to start negotiations with Russia at the moment. But my last question to you, Mr. Harris, do you think that there are divisions between the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelenskiy, and his military command over the state of the play in war?
Well, certainly the general who gave this interview to The Economist was roundly criticized, and another general was sacked. And there are tensions within the military and the president. The president's office is reported to be adamant, no retreat, no surrender. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Whereas the military is saying, look, you've got to be realistic. There was one report where the president's office ordered the troops to take a town, and the message that came back from the front line was, take it with what? We don't have the arms, we don't have the men. And so there's a feeling in Kyiv, again, it's been reported, that there's some sort of dissatisfaction that Zelensky is seen to be unrealistic about what could be done. And without that support, without the Western support, that now looks like it's not coming, then I think, we're at the beginning of the end of this war. It's going to be a bitter struggle. But without that support, which isn't appearing, that there's going to have to be a ceasefire. It's just a question of how we get from here to there. And that's a very difficult road to travel.
Right, Mr. Harris. Thanks very much for taking our time and joining us on WION with your insights.
And now updates from the Russia-Ukraine war, where shelling continues from both the sides. Ukraine's military says that its troops have repelled Russian assaults in multiple areas, while they are bracing for a third wave of Russian offensive in a bid to capture the key frontline eastern town of Avdiivka. And as per Ukrainian Interior Minister, Russia bombed 118 Ukrainian towns and villages in the last 24 hours, more than on any other day this year. As per the ministry, 10 of Ukraine's 27 regions had come under an attack, and there have been multiple deaths and injuries. Meanwhile, shelling by Ukrainian forces killed 6 people in the city of Donetsk on Tuesday, while a further 11 people have also been injured. And all this is as per a Russian-installed official in the eastern region of Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry says its air defense systems destroyed and intercepted a total of 17 Ukraine-launched drones over the Black Sea and Crimea on Tuesday, which was thought that it did not mention any casualties. On the other hand, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy has said that Ukraine has deployed more Western air defense systems. This in preparation for an expected Russian onslaught on key energy infrastructure during the winter season. Meanwhile, visuals on your screens, it shows Ukrainian artillery soldiers filing rockets from makeshift Grad launchers at the front line in Zaporizhia region. The army unit equipped pickup trucks with rocket launch pipes from Soviet era. Grad systems, and as per them, the makeshift system has greater mobility and flexibility than any other launcher. Meanwhile, negotiations over the war also continue. In the latest, G7 foreign ministers are expected to hold discussions on the war. The two-day meet is currently underway in Tokyo. Turkey has also renewed its offer to host negotiations to end the war. This was done by Turkish foreign minister during talks with his Belarusian counterpart. The Turkish minister reportedly said that he wanted a peaceful end to the ongoing war. Meanwhile, as per the reports, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is chairing a meeting of ambassadors from 35 nations on the war. And we will keep you updated as more details of the meeting comes out.
Hello everyone, you're watching WION World is One. I'm Shiban Channa. As per several sources, Vladimir Putin has decided to run for president in the March presidential election in Russia, a move that will keep him in power until 2030. Now, Russia has gone through a perilous period, and Putin feels he must steer Russia through. With Putin at the helm of affairs, how will this impact the ongoing war in Ukraine, and how will it impact Russia's global imprint and the ongoing tensions with global powers? Now, to discuss Russia's future course under Putin's reign, we are joined by Dr. Gilbert Doctorow. He's an international affairs analyst, author, and historian. He joins us from Brussels. Doctor, always a pleasure to have you on board.
Thanks for the invitation.
Doctor, now, how do you see the Russia-Ukraine war proceeding under another term of Vladimir Putin's leadership?
Well, first, I'd like to just make one small correction. Technically speaking, Mr. Putin has not declared his candidacy. He'll do that in December after the exact date of the elections has been announced. Nonetheless, what you say is correct. Substantially, everyone expects him to be the candidate.
Yes.
And it is 100%
sources have confirmed
that he's a candidate.
Yes. Kremlin hasn't, but sources have confirmed. Yes.
Yes. The point to make, looking at the future, is that Mr. Putin, despite everything that you read in mainstream Western media, is not the only person in power in Russia. He has formed a most impressive team. He has been a fantastic man manager. And that means that he's always had in his immediate entourage people of various opinions and various philosophies of government. So we're speaking about a Putin team that is run by Mr. Putin, and not just by one Mr. Putin running the show himself. That has to be made clear.
Yes.
For that very reason, it's not an idle observation. For that very reason, we have to understand that with or without Mr. Putin in power, the Russian foreign policy and domestic policy, the contours have been set for many years to come by the very group around him, among whom are potential successors. Now, what does this mean for the Ukraine war? The Ukraine war is now in the shadows, and I think it will not reemerge into the front page news for any time soon. The United States in particular is of two minds on this subject. The primacy of the Ukraine war in mainstream was a sore point for the United States when it became clear that Russia could not be defeated on the field of battle. And that is now manifestly clear. The current byword in the United States and European media is that the war has reached an impasse, that it is at a stalemate. That is what is being propagated in all of our news media. It is manifestly false. The war is a stalemate only when you look at the line of demarcation, the line of confrontation between the two sides, which indeed has not changed substantially over the last 6 months. But that is to miss the point of the war. The war is a war of attrition, and the Russians have largely succeeded in their mission of demilitarizing Ukraine. Now, that may sound like an overstatement, because every day we read about so many sorties by Ukrainian units here and there along this